Today we're going to be talking about the Barbie movie, my thoughts, opinions and memories with the movie and the doll line itself. It was fun, it was camp, it was queer, and most importantly, it made me cry! Let's talk about the Barbie movie. Hello everybody, my name is Brooklyn, otherwise known as the Dramatic Otaku, and welcome to my review of the Barbie movie. So I have put this movie review into parts, so let's just jump right into our Barbie convertibles and speed drive into the synopsis of the film. But not before a little spoiler warning, as I will be giving away so much of this film. If you have not seen the Barbie movie, I would highly suggest watching this in cinemas first and then coming back to this later, because that is what I did for the last 2 weeks, because it took me 2 weeks to actually go and see the film as I saw it with my mum. So I will just wait for when you actually watch the film. This video is going to be here anyway. For the rest of you, let's just jump into it. Starting with the synopsis of the film. So, Barbie lives in Barbie Land, which is perfect until she has an increasingly and more cryptic thoughts about death. Forced to find the little girl who's playing with her in real life, she's taken into the real world and has Ken come along with her for the ride, which leads to him finding out what the patriarchy is and bringing it back to Barbie Land, and Barbie discovering what the real world is and having to avoid the bigwig executives at Mattel at the same time, finding out also what patriarchy is firsthand. Barbie finds out who was playing with her and who was making her think the things that she was thinking. And it turns out it wasn't the preteen Sasha, it was her mother, Gloria. The three try to find a way to try and escape the Mattel executives so that Barbie doesn't get put back in her box. So Barbie takes them to Barbie Land, which they find the Kens taking over. The third act of the film has the Barbies taking back Barbie Land, Sasha and Gloria having a closer bond, and the Kens finding a purpose within themselves, our Barbie choosing to leave Barbie Land and live in the human world as a human. That is very, very brisk, very, very brief, and you may be wondering, on my shelves, where the fucks are the Kens? They're in their Mojo Dozer Casa house, living their best life. So my thoughts on the film itself, I have many of them because I grew up with a lot of fucking dolls, and these aren't all mine. Some of them, most of them are. However, some of these are my mother's because she was a Barbie collector, so I know an awful lot about the dolls, what kind of dolls there were, what dolls my mum had, what ones she has in boxes, what ones she kept out, and this Ken I literally bought because my mum is an ex-doll collector. I have a whole interview with my mum, and that is for a different video for another day. Also a video about Barbie, but that is just a little bit of backstory about my connection with the dolls. I grew up with them pretty much from the age of 1, and you can't see it, but destroying them ever since. And I bought this doll, not necessarily for this video, but this is one of the newer Barbie dolls. Safe to say, I knew a lot about Barbie growing up. I have a very strong interest in Barbie, though I'm not a collector. I just know a lot about the doll and grew up playing with the dolls, as well as like Bratz and Monster High as well. So my thoughts on this film is very, very biased, and I loved it. I basically adored all the references to all of the Barbie things and all of the real Barbies. and some of the subtle reference to prior Barbie films, which are very, very subtle and hidden like in the background of like Barbie Land and all that sort of shit. It was super fun and camp and just enjoyable all around. Some of the fourth wall breaks are fantastic and just very, very fitting in terms of like communicating with the audience and having the audience be reflected on the screen. Such as the quip of Barbie crying and calling herself ugly and the narrator saying, "To the filmmakers, using Margot Robbie for this scene was a bad idea." I've heard a lot of mixed reactions to that line. I personally thought it was fucking hilarious, especially with that added layer of like Margot Robbie being called Mid on Twitter. But just having that little controversy going on in the back of my mind and then this line going on in the actual film itself made it just like 10 times funnier to me. And speaking of laughing, of course, is the Kens. I love that the Kens were kind of campy. It was hilarious. It was very fitting to like the Barbie in the dream house kind of Ken, especially since obviously it's Barbie in a dream house and all that sort of stuff in Barbie Land. It felt very similar to that kind of Ken our main Ken was, but I love that all the Kens were kind of campy and a little bit gay. It was fantastic, it was hilarious, and this film made me realize why people found Ryan Gosling hot in the first place. The beach off scene was fantastic. I love a little bit of a sexual innuendo. It was too cheap and funny not to laugh at. And I love the vulnerability of Ken in the end of the film. He had a very good, very cliche character arc, but that adds to the camp and I love that aspect. The dance number is fun and Adelyn is definitely a highlight of the film as well. Michael Cera playing a slightly nervous character is always a good, like, fun thing in these films, and I like that Adelyn was kind of like the voice of reason and was like very heavily queer coded. I also fucking loved the NSYNC joke, especially when he's referencing Justin Timberlake and it's like, yes, even that one. It's a very, very meta joke as well. Then of course in all films is these subtle things I love in the production of the film itself, such as Barbie making squeaking sounds as if she was the doll when she like falls over all depressed and shit, which I've found very funny, and that sort of stuff disappears as she becomes more human. I love that Weird Barbie is constantly in a split. I like the way that Barbie talks about her feelings in the real world, and of course, when there's humans in Barbie Land, they reference real world dolls. Now, of course, a lot of the actual dolls themselves, like, reference each other, but when Gloria walks around and talks about, oh, I had this as a kid, oh, I had this as a kid, oh, I saved up for this as a kid, I love that because they just sort of went into depth a little more about Barbie lore, especially when Weird Barbie is introducing all of the discontinued dolls. I thought that was very, very fun, and like it was like, oh, I know this bit of lore, I know this bit of lore, and then some bits were just like, oh, that's new and interesting. I didn't realize there was a sugar daddy Ken. Even the like even more subtle things that felt very like relatable to me like growing up was like Gloria, Sasha's mom, saving Sasha's Barbie dolls, because that's something that my mom did, and so I have like a bunch of old dolls that I didn't save but that mum saved. The Bratz references, speaking of Sasha, I thought was pretty slick, and I did try to say before I watched the film, oh no, they're referencing my scene, they're definitely referencing my scene, because you know legally they can't outwardly say they're the Bratz, but when I found out Sasha's name, I was like, yep, that's Bratz. The film itself was really funny, and it's balanced in a way that's both spreading a message and taking the piss out of itself and being really humorous at the same time, which is something that I really appreciate in media. Did it get a little full on at some points in terms of it like trying to force feed you the message? Yes, but at some points I felt like it was sort of just like, haha, that's the joke, and was kind of taking the piss out of itself at the same time. So I felt a little bit conflicted about that, but I thought it was pretty funny, and did do like whales trying to portray the message well. It's pretty difficult to explain if you don't know my channel contents already, which I'm assuming most of you who watch this video wouldn't, but I have a pretty big issue with a lot of media sort of force feeding you messages without doing it in an entertaining way. Pretty much Barbie does tend to force feed you its message a bit, but it does it in an entertaining way, and I enjoy that very much. Okay, now that I've gotten my word vomit out of the way, I'm going to be talking a bit more about the more serious elements of the film that, like, I adored, such as, like, the plot points that nearly made me cry, or did make me cry. So this film really took care and consideration into what it's like to be a girl who grows up with Barbie. It's definitely made by women who played with Barbies and ones who wanted to capture what it feels like to be a woman and portray it via Barbie. As a woman, it feels good that this film affirms what it's like to be a woman and the experiences as a woman, and to be a girl, to be someone who wants to connect with their younger selves, let alone connect to daughters or mothers or granddaughters or cousins or something like that. And I feel that this movie also reflects its audience very, very well, which is Barbie misunderstanding who was playing with her. Barbie thinks that the kid who played with her is Sasha, the daughter of the mother-daughter duo, where it's actually Sasha's mother, Gloria. When going back to Barbie Land and taking back the land from the Kens, it's both mother and daughter, it's both mother and daughter who experience it together. Both mother and daughter need to experience something they shared in their childhood together. The film is rated PG in Australia, which basically means that it is a family film, and with the Barbie brand being aimed at children, most people went in thinking this was a film for kids and women with nostalgia. When going into this film, you think it's going to be a fun kids film with a bunch of references like the Lego Movie. But it was much more than that. It was women reliving their childhoods with their mothers, their daughters, their sisters, even like brothers, husbands, boyfriends, girlfriends, friends, pretty much anyone and everyone. It was at the very least one person who relived their childhood and made other people come with them. Sasha and her mother were representative of the intended audience of the film, and I love that. I love how well it reflected, or their dynamic reflected, what the audience felt like going into this. And I might be a bit more biased because me and my mum, both adults, but like we can relate to Sasha and Gloria pretty well, so that might be bias on my part, but I don't care. This is my review. Do I think the film could have been a little more fun for kids? Maybe reference the films more? Yeah, it's definitely, however, aimed more at an older audience and an older era of Barbie enjoyers, but I think it was done to connect mothers to daughters and women together. Because in the end, the one who was playing with Barbie wasn't Sasha, it was Gloria. And in every mum, there was a little girl who used to absolutely take care of all of her Barbies, just like we used to.
Hi, my name is Dana, and I got my first Barbie doll when I was probably 5 or 6. The first Barbie that I got that was my Barbie was Kissing Barbie, and which actually had lipstick, and it kisses. You press a button, it kisses, and I think that might actually be about 1980, but I'm not 100% sure. However, before that I was playing with my sister's Barbie dolls, so I've had Barbie dolls around me since I was probably about 2, and I didn't start actually collecting until I was 22. There was nothing that I kept in a box. However, my Barbies were gold, so I really looked after them really well, to the point where the 3 Barbies that I had were given to me as a child, I still have. They are still got all their hair is still pristine. I used to have a box where I used to wrap them in tissue paper, and I really looked after my Barbie dolls.
Which is a statement, as behind you on your left side, I've put the only Barbies that are the most like destroyed are my ones.
Yes.
And they're the comparison because they're the exact same dolls. I've done pretty good with the like fashion line doll. So that one, the one sitting down is mine.
This is mine.
Yeah, the one that's sitting down is mine, and the one that's standing is yours.
This one and this one as well.
Yes. Or at least I would like to say that I took care of my Barbies, but I had a fair amount of weird Barbies growing up. So that clip that I just showed is part of the, as aforementioned, interview that I did with my mum, who is a former Barbie collector. That interview is for a video that I am working on for another Barbie video that is about a movie that you may not have heard of before. In that interview and the preparations for that video, I've been doing a lot of research into Barbie and learning more and more about my mum's experience with Barbie, and just hearing what she had to say about growing up with Barbie and like her process of being and becoming a collector made my investment into the film just more impactful, and I could really see my mum in Gloria. Couldn't necessarily see myself in Sasha, mainly because I was freaking out about the fact that it was very clearly a Bratz reference. Because of that connection of me seeing my mum in Gloria, I very much cried at the end of the film. Very nearly bawled at the end of the film, but very much cried. Now, saying that I cried, I don't remember why I cried, but the scene where Barbie meets Ruth for the first time, I nearly cried. And then when Barbie leaves Barbieland with Ruth, yeah, that is when I cried, but I was so focused on trying not to cry that I dissociated and focused solely on me not crying. But every time I stared at the screen and paused and heard Barbie say something or Ruth say something, more tears welled up. So I really wasn't focused on that scene. Just I remember something like triggered me crying. I think it was mainly because Barbie wanted to be more than a concept or an idea. She wanted to be real, want to experience life, and it really felt like the process of a little girl growing up into a woman, and as someone who was a young adult, felt very fucking relatable. And it felt like my own experience as a person, let alone a woman. Again, I didn't get to fully hear the full dialogue between Ruth and Barbie, because before I knew it, there was like a home video of women and children playing with Barbies and mothers and daughters being together, and I cried more. As I said, I do have my critiques and nitpicks of the film, so the more critical part of the film that I would like to talk about is that from the pacing being off with a slow start and a slightly crammed end, to the blatant product placement of advertisements such as Duolingo, I will say my issues aren't particularly with the story itself. I think it was told well, and comparing it to similar films, I like that it was more mature than I would have thought, yet still remaining with that campy fun element that we all expected going into the Barbie movie. But realistically, this was a movie made for women, mostly adults and teens. I wouldn't necessarily say this was for kids, and I felt like more humor could have been added for kids that kids would understand, especially in the latter portion of the film. It does have a great message and all, but I remember growing up and watching films similar to the Barbie film where I thought it was aimed at me, and it had been portrayed like it was aimed at me, but the message was so mature that I just didn't want to watch the end, or did not care for the end of the film. Yeah, it could have been more aimed towards children in that way, but the audience was clearly an older audience. It just had a PG rating because it's Mattel and Barbie. In keeping with the story plot elements that I didn't like, I would have liked Gloria and Stasha to have a more concrete ending. Yeah, we get that Gloria provides an idea to Mattel and that they're gonna like make it into a doll, but we don't really get a concrete ending on what happens to Gloria and her job, nor really what happens with Sasha. And I get that with Barbie's ending being ambiguous, that Gloria and Sasha's is also ambiguous because they're not dolls. They don't really get an ending unless they die. They continue living and their life continues to change. So I kind of get that, but I would have liked to see an ending in which Gloria and Sasha have some involvement in their lives, you know? Back to the pacing of the film. The actual runtime of the movie I thought was great. The movie didn't overstay its welcome, unlike so many other films that I've watched in the last 2 years. This movie felt like a good pace for its runtime, but it felt really slow in the beginning and a bit too much going on at the end. And talking about a bit too much, Duolingo. Whatever car brand was being advertised, Photoshop. 3 very, very clear advertisements put into the film. I get it's a film by a toy corporation. I was expecting advertisements thrown at us for Barbie, and they did it in a very like campy way. But that car chasing could have gone on for so much shorter, and seeing as it did go on for the length that it did, why was Speed Drive not played louder? Then of course there's like the blatant fact that the movie is just a big like advertisement for Barbie, and sure, I knew that going in, but there are just some elements, especially in the beginning, where it really just feels like they've taken the set from when like they do Barbie ads, like that white background, and just inserted an actual ad into the film, which was really weird. Wasn't really feeling the vibe on that one. And yeah, that's pretty much most of my nitpicks. And I get that these are very like surface level nitpicks. Am I missing something? I feel like I'm missing something. Midge!
The whole Midge shit, first of all, I need to know why Midge wasn't with weird Barbie. Because fucking Cockring Ken and Sugar Daddy Ken were also discontinued. The Barbie with the television in her back, discontinued. Why is Midge in Barbie Land?
She's more valid.
Why is Midge actually being played with? Like, because there's been more of a recurrence of Midge being referenced with, like, Barbie in the Dream House. So, clearly maybe that's the reason why she was actually included in Barbie Land and not with Weird Barbie. Like, even the big tit Skipper doll was referenced as well. But she's with Weird Barbie! Why is Midge not with Weird Barbie? But that whole, like, Ben Shapiro thing of, like, oh, it's denouncing motherhood and shit. I'm just like, you clearly don't know the history of the doll. The doll was taken off shelves because people didn't want to see a pregnant Barbie doll that was, that was unmarried, which Midge was married, and, thought that it encouraged teen pregnancy, which wasn't the case whatsoever. And, like, his backwards idea that the avoidance of Midge is, like, avoiding motherhood and all that sort of shit, or, like, denouncing motherhood. No, it's the conservative people who didn't fucking want Midge in the first place. Midge is used as a stain on Mattel's reputation. Also, the fucking doll that keeps being shown as pregnant Barbie, that people keep throwing up, isn't fucking Barbie. It isn't a Mattel doll whatsoever. Because if you search pregnant Barbie, there's a blonde doll with an actual baby in its belly. That's not Midge. It's also not Barbie. It's just another doll who tried to do the same thing as Midge. But, like, the whole Midge thing is a joke that it's a stain on Mattel's, like, clean, in heavy quotation marks, reputation. And that Midge is the most well-known. I just find it so funny that, like, Ben Shapiro is using Midge as a talking point when it was most definitely conservative parents who didn't want Midge around in the fucking first place. Like, again, the reason Midge was pulled off shelves was because she was quote-unquote unmarried because she didn't come with a Ken, and which she was not unmarried. She had a fucking husband at the time, but nobody fucking remembers Ken. And also, they thought it was going to promote teen pregnancy, which it's like, if a fucking baby doll doesn't do it, then what? Also, the reference to baby dolls being, like, tossed away for Barbie is because that's what happened with the doll line. If you do not have enough fucking awareness
Brain cells.
about, like, the actual doll line going into this film, or a basic awareness on the history of the doll line, what gives you the right to fucking talk about this film and make any sort of critical analysis on why baby dolls are being smashed in the film? That's just fucking cognitive dissonance, and they talk about cognitive dissonance in the fucking film. Like, what backwards talking? He clearly did not do any research into Barbie. You can't do a fucking critical analysis on Barbie if you also don't know about the toy lines, about the history of the doll. If you don't do your research into Barbie, you're just making a completely false statement, and you've not done your research, and you're just making a poor excuse and grasping at straws.
Continuing a mommy doll named Midge. And Midge is the pregnant doll and was discontinued. They're like, that's bad. But hold on.
Okay, but note why she was discontinued. Why was she discontinued?
There is a Citizens United reference.
That's it. They don't mention why she was fucking discontinued.
Nope.
They didn't do their fucking research.
With that very heated plot point, that I found to be a plot hole, let's talk about the political part. So I'm not by any means a commentary YouTuber. I am a review tuber. I review mainly manga and anime, sometimes movies, but I have known to include my, like, political beliefs into some of my reviews, such as on a couple of manga that just didn't pass the fucking test. But that is to say that when it comes to the political stuff with Barbie, the reviews that it got was way too much for what the film actually gave us politically. So I can't really say anything about the message of Barbie that really hasn't already been said. So I kind of made a weird list paragraph thing. A lot of these ideas, as I just mentioned, have been already expressed online, and many are not strictly my own. So for all of the plot points, or the, like, little bullets that I talk about, I'm going to link a bunch of reviews from people that I've watched that I agree with their point to, like, at least some extent, or that I find their review interesting at the very least, and their ads will be, like, at the bottom of the screen, as well as all their videos being in the description box down below, some of them being in the iCard. Some of these ideas came off of TikTok, so I don't know if I can put them in the iCard or not. So in terms of the political stuff, my basic opinion is that, of many, that the film didn't really say anything groundbreaking on feminism. Every talking point mentioned has been said before, and the ideas are mostly widespread, but the way the film portrayed it was fun, and the feminism and patriarchy shit was part of the joke, which is why they used Barbie to tell it. Put it this way. With a name like Barbie being attached to this film, women, and on extension their husbands, sons, brothers, etc., flooded to this film for nostalgia the same way people flooded to the Lego Movie. Many of the ideas featured in the film are not new, but some of the ideas have been regarded to being for only the well-educated people, the ideas of patriarchy, exploring what it is and the role of women in society. The movie used Barbie, the women who can do anything, and use it as a reflection of patriarchy to take a well-known concept and not expand upon it, but explain the ideas to a much wider audience and make it more accessible. The movie quite literally plays with Barbies and uses Barbie as a bit of a puppet. Whether this is a good or a bad thing is really up to you. The Barbie brand itself, in general Mattel, but specifically the Barbie brand itself, plays with feminism in a very similar way to make feminism more digestible while not particularly contributing to the actual cause. But the movie does this in a camp way, in my opinion, which makes it enjoyable. Not good or bad, but enjoyable. Then is more of a less political take on the film personally, is that the feelings element of the film. We've had intelligent, let's get feelings into the mix. Barbie isn't just its political message. It's made by women for women to help women heal their inner child. Referencing dolls from the past, that was my mum's favourite part, as well as make women feel validated in their very real experiences in turn. That whole catcalling bit in which Barbie's sort of explaining what she's feeling as it's happening is a great example of that. But even more than that, Gloria talking about her dolls as a kid really solidifies a girl's experience in playing with dolls. Then I want to touch on the whole transgender shits in the real world that I was seeing that came out about the film. There is a trans actress in the film and she's really fucking funny when she's on screen, and she wasn't playing trans Barbie, she was playing another Barbie. That was it. Her role was Barbie. I don't see why that was spreading the trans agenda. The only other thing could be that there was a joke about Barbie and Ken not having genitals, and the construction workers who they were talking to was okay, live your truth, I guess. That's it. The joke was that Barbies don't have genitals. And yes, that can be a double entendre, as Barbie had literally referenced that minutes prior, but it was mainly a joke about the dolls because it's a film about the dolls. And that last point is where I think a lot of the en masse hate is coming from. Even with that audio clip that I played earlier with Midge, I say it, these people do not know the dolls. You have to at least have some knowledge about the dolls and how they work, and at least some knowledge of the history of Barbie to like the film. Or at the very least to do a decent criticism of the film, as well as have some sort of understanding of what the actual core audience is and what it looks like for this film, because this film is not just for 7-year-old girls, and I would argue is for actually a much more mature audience. And my reason for thinking this is because a lot of the Barbies shown are older Barbies from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Adelyn, Midge, and all of the Barbie clothes that Ken throws out of the Mojo Dojo Casa house are all older dolls and older clothing sets for Barbie. And sure, they have modern interpretations of current doll lines, but guess what? That is because they're trying to sell more dolls. It is a film approved of and released by Mattel. Of course, they're trying to fucking sell you more dolls. For the whole purpose of not this video but another one, I bought a whole ass Barbie doll. I bought my mum the Ken doll for this film because I thought it would be a fun thing because it's a tie-in doll with the film. They're trying to sell more dolls. Of course there's gonna be fucking dolls from the current lines. The whole bottom line of the film isn't to spread this message, it's to sell more dolls by introducing Barbie nostalgia and then being like, oh, I'm gonna buy my granddaughter, my daughter, my sister, my mum a Barbie doll. That is the bottom line of the fucking film. The core audience, as I said, is women and their children to appeal to nostalgia. How the fuck would a small child have nostalgia about a pregnant doll from the early 2000s they didn't know fucking existed? Knowing about the dolls is important to having knowledge about the film, but understanding the dolls and the doll history is also imperative to understanding the themes and messages about the film. It's been said before, and will be said again, Barbie was a reflection of the potential women could have in the world made into a doll. More than just mothers, Barbie had her own money and her own life, something which at the time women wanted as they entered the workforce for the first time when Barbie first appeared. And this isn't something that I've just pulled out of thin air, this was literally in the film. First 5 minutes, opening statements about the goddamn doll. So, my final thoughts on the messages and the film itself. My hottest take is that Barbie is more of an emotional journey than a political one. It's a metaphorical exploration of a naive young girl being exposed to the real world, an experience women have everywhere and are forced to experience. Much like how Barbie is forced to face the real world while wanting to forget all about the problems, which in the very end of the film is what brought me to tears. Barbie grew into a real woman, one who experiences the ups and downs of the world. Patriarchy is something that everybody has to deal with, and that was the political part. The movie was just showing how it affects women by reflecting that on how the Kens are living in matriarchy and having Barbies face it in patriarchy, while acknowledging how the patriarchy also affects men's too, also represented on Ken. Story-wise, I did like it. Again, I cried. But I did feel like it lacked something. For me, I felt it could have gone more into the crazy campy lore about Barbie, similar to the animated films or like the Lego movie. But I did appreciate what it did do, and Barbie does have those animated movies where it didn't actually need to be similar to those whatsoever. And it really could just be its own thing. It's about the doll and the many doll lines, not the actual Barbie character itself. I do also feel that the movie could have been more kid-oriented in story, but I did genuinely enjoy it as an adult who grew up with the dolls, as did my mum and my cousins and my aunts. And I feel that some kids who watch it now will have a better appreciation for it in the future. The quips are funny, the whole movie felt like a meta joke, and the ending truly hit home for me, as I have been crying about it even 4 days later. Was it my favourite film of the year? No. Suzume still takes the top spot for me. But did I enjoy it? Yes. Just like how I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys, as I just said, enjoyed this video. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye, Barbie!